Last November, Americans got handed a $1.2 trillion package infrastructure, which addressed roads and bridges and mass transit and rails and ports and airports and waterways, what's often referred to as hard infrastructure. There were also billions for improving broadband infrastructure and billions for improving the electrical grid and our water systems, plus billions even left over to establish a nationwide network of plug-in electric vehicle chargers. But the money didn't come soon enough to help Pittsburgh. In late January, a 50-year-old bridge collapsed, dropping a bus, which was on the bridge, into a ravine. In Allegheny County, where Pittsburgh is located, there are almost 1,300 bridges, according to the Highway Administration. 396 of those bridges are in good shape. 177 are in fair shape, and 123 are in poor shape. In total, for the state of Pennsylvania itself, it has nearly 23,000 bridges, with over 3,000 of them in poor shape. This according to federal data. Still, Pennsylvania isn't ranked the worst for poor bridges. It happens to be West Virginia, and that according to the American Road and Transportation Builders Association. I'm Terry Gilberg. This is Timeline with Terry. Today's Timeline topic, Build Back Better starts with bridges.
CTA is a call to action to all conservatives to save America from left-wing radicals.
Nearly 45% of the U.S. workforce already have plans for job hopping in 2021. Now, many of those 70 million job hoppers are just fed up and they're ready to work somewhere else, somewhere where they will be free. Maybe it's time for your talents to go to a city or a company that actually values your freedom. Post your resume on redballoon.org so that you can connect with this ever-growing list of free speech employers who would love to hire you.
All right, guys, you have signed up, right? You've joined freedomsquare.com. If you haven't, why not? This should have happened a decade ago. How did somebody not think of this earlier? If you're a business owner, we have a business directory to promote your business to patriots across the nation. So if you want to buy American, if you want to sell American, we have a business directory. Whatever it is, go now.
Join us in the fight for freedom. Welcome to Freedom Square.
Welcome back to Timeline with Terry, where we invite expert guests to go deep and broad with me on the hot and complex issues of our day. Today's discussion is on bridge safety in America, among other infrastructure safeties, especially where bridges are ranked in poor condition and how soon the money will get to the states that need it most for their infrastructure. We'll also discuss construction honesty and transparency. Today's guest is a person who is a construction industry expert. She's Shelly Armato. She's the CEO of My Smart Plans. It's a woman-owned business that works to make the construction industry a lot more efficient. She's actually managed over $12 billion in construction projects and is very passionate about integrity and transparency throughout all of the industry. Welcome, Shelly.
Thank you.
So nice to have you.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Well, good. Let's get right to it because we got a lot to cover.
Yes.
I was reading over mysmartplans.com. Really like that website. It's very thorough. And I was struck with the history. Your husband, according to the website, Dominic, suffered firsthand what chaos in the industry does. He was a 45-year-old contractor, according to the story, and was wildly successful even in the world of corrupt projects.
Yes.
With that, on one project, there was insufficient data that caused him and others to shut down that project and the doors on that company completely, until he assumedly pulls himself up by his bootstraps and started on, probably married you, and the rest is history of
Well,
success.
we were already married, and I actually picked him up. I'm like, get up.
From
We're
the
not done.
bootstraps.
Exactly. This is not the time to lay down. What happened? And, he couldn't.
And what did happen?
Well, he couldn't even identify what had happened. Immersion is our worst disease. Like just immersion, staying with something just kind of status quo. So he did everything he needed to do, pagers, you name it, he had every kind of device. And he was just on 24/7.
Trying to figure out what the problem was, or trying to recover?
Trying to manage all of his projects. And so...
How many at the time?
Well, I don't even know. I can't...
A dozen?
Probably 12. But they're like huge projects. He was Mr. Kansas City. He's doing casinos and Union Station.
Oh, wow.
He could walk in here right now and tell you the color paint on the wall. He is that guy.
Oh, I need him for my kitchen.
Well, he'll come over. Don't worry. He'd love to talk about paint. Anyway, and he came home, and he's Sicilian, so we know that culture just is raised to be artisans, and they kind of follow in the footsteps. That's what he did. And he bought his father's company at 19. It was a residential painting company. He turned it into this mega company that was just brilliant. Everybody knew him. And anyway, he came home. He's like, I bonded this project. It was $1 million. And Shelly, I'm going to have to tell you, we could potentially lose everything. And I kind of...
Really? It was that bad?
It was terrible. And he was too embarrassed because he took on, like a lot of times abuse, the person that's abused takes on the responsibility on themselves. He's like, well, I don't know what I could have done differently. I did everything right. And it just came down to the contractor basically laughed at him and said, ha, you're out of business. But here's the brilliant thing, we laugh about Up From the Ashes in the Chitty Chitty Bang Bang song. Because we're like,
I remember that.
Yeah, up from the ashes, let's go. And so we didn't even intend to reinvent the industry. We were just going to try to figure out how to then sustain and kind of build back what we had lost, which was almost $1 million. Plus this company didn't sell, it closed. So who knows all the financial devastation. But we knew one thing. There was a problem, NASA. Hello, there's a problem. So we reinvented our very first project. We caught corruption. We're the gatekeepers to all the data, so everything flows through us. And then we are third-party custodians of all the data. So everything is now in our house. And so the general contractor, we're arm's length transactions. So the general contractor is now responsible. Yes.
So
Yeah.
before you go into your company, I want to finish up on the story so I'm clear on it. Did you discover corruption? Did you discover deceit? What did Dominic discover? What was at the kernel of the problem? Was it theft? Was it payola? What?
Yes. It was,
all of the above?
Yes, it was chaos, confusion.
Sounds like Italian mafia.
Oh my God, that is so funny. We can't even say that. I was at a huge airport presenting a big airport, and all the executives are there. They're like, this is awesome. We can see what we're doing for the first time. We can run our facility. The lead executive at the airport said to me, we can't hire you because you're actually going to make the mafia mad. Literally, I swear.
The mafia in Kansas City.
No, mafia in this town that I was sitting at.
I see.
It's a well-known town. So anyway, Dominic being from the world of, that's probably not a good idea. We left, and it was a $3 billion project that basically the taxpayers are just going to keep on writing checks. And it's what happens. It's, over and over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. So the bridge falling is going to be, it's not just now, it's the next $3 trillion that we're going to spend. I don't know. I'd love to see the budget, how much they budgeted for litigation. How much in that, is there a line item that says litigation? Is there a line item that says contingency? Because what happens is the state, the government, the GSA, the Corps of Engineers, they have contingencies, which are like savings accounts.
Mm-hmm. In case. Dot.
Yeah. But what the conversation is that the general contractor makes friends with these people. They go have wine, even though they can't buy them dinner. They find ways to
grease the palm.
Thank you. And so the question's always like, well, what's the contingency? What's your contingency? That's a sacred conversation. I'm not going to tell you, but the systems are set up that the government employees that are overseeing these projects have no defense. They're defenseless. Mm. They try to do their best. They have great integrity, but they're defenseless. They're they're just in the way of the checkbook.
I see. All right, let's go before we leave the current event on this bridge. Can you tell, because you're an expert in the industry and you deal with all kinds of construction projects, and your husband is too, can you tell by kind of looking at the news on this bridge in Pennsylvania, this latest one that happened the end of January, do you smell shenanigans? Do you smell corruption? Do you smell just people not very trained in building it? Do you smell what your company is really known for, and that is data? The data. Did this bridge perhaps not have enough data in its history so that when repairs are made, they don't know who's on first? It's just a little, cement here and.
Yeah. Well,
can you tell that?
Well, I mean, I can definitely 100% guarantee that whenever they weren't going to release the report, the inspection report, it's because they would probably be humiliated to the length of the inspection that they were able to inspect, because you need the history of the bridge in order to do an inspection. You need to know what the PSI of the concrete was. You need to know what was the weather whenever the bridge was poured. I mean, what are the issues of the bridge?
All right, so for the sake of conversation, this bridge was 50 years old.
Yeah.
Would the current workers or current management or subcontractors know or see the history all the way 50 years back?
Absolutely.
Impossible.
Impossible. But they're continuing that saga now.
What do you mean?
Meaning the problem has not been fixed because the bridge is 50 years old. The problem grew greater because the construction industry has the inability or the consequence, really, to turn over all the data. And the thing is that the state or the government or the GSA or the Corps of Engineers, they don't know what they don't know until there's an emergency.
Yeah, it's reactive,
yes,
not
it's
proactive.
Exactly.
Well, we are kind of like that in America as our culture.
Yeah.
Don't
well,
you
I
think?
changed that. Like, let's figure that out differently. So yeah, we've totally radically changed all that. I looked at that bridge, like the condo in Florida that fell.
Oh,
I'm sitting
so
here and
tragic.
I'm like,
half the condo's down, the other half is kind of wiggly, but it's still up.
Yeah, but the terrible thing is where's the water shut off?
Oh.
They don't know. They can't find, where's the as-built? They can't find anything. I mean, it's like, where's the data? How many lives could have been saved? So this is what we're setting our country up for. Again, stop. Let's do this differently. And so we stand.
All right, doing it differently now. 1.7 trillion, I think, is the total amount in this just part one of the big Build Back Better for infrastructure.
Yes.
How do you feel about that figure? Necessary, overblown, a lot of political pork. What do you think? Is it just outrageous? I mean, we are talking in the trillions these days. Our debt is 30 trillion after all. It's like, oh yeah, another dollar here. Thank goodness we print money.
But this is my point.
Or the reserve currency or else.
It feels like, as an American citizen, that because the government can just print money, they don't have a real handle on what it's like to be an American consumer. I mean, we go to the grocery store. Right, we go to the grocery store. Our bill's $47. We don't say, "Oh, you know what? Let me give you $60. It's no big deal. I can print some over here," because they go to jail for printing money in that situation. But it's just this chronic problem that says we can do this different. And so I just keep raising my hand and saying there is a better way. There is something we can do. Not everyone likes change. I look at the Uber whenever Uber came on board. And, well, that's a great idea. I Ubered here. I mean, but it's like, wait a minute, you put all this.
Is this really going to work? I'm sure you thought.
Yeah, this is what I thought. But now I know that this is exactly what has to happen.
New innovation,
yes,
and here we are.
I
came by way of a private driver, as a matter of fact. That wasn't a limousine. It was an Uber or a Lyft driver.
And he was wonderful too. I loved him.
Anyway, all right, let me move on. I do want to get to the nuts and bolts of my smart plans and how you have, as your website says, reinvented the construction industry. That is a big statement, but good for you. Would you say, before we do that, would you say that the heart of the problem on most of these catastrophes, like the building in Florida, and I think I said earlier it was half this and half that, I think it was a building in threes, I think if I recall right, and 1/3 crashed down and the other two are kind of wobbly. But would you say that its document manipulation is the biggest area of concern and perhaps the biggest area of corruption?
Yes, 100%. Everyone's got data.
And is that what your company is mostly about?
Oh, yeah, we're about eliminating that and providing fair play. So in my husband's business, he would be asked to bid a project. They would send him a link. He would look at the, drawings, and it would take him 10 days or whatever, depending on the size of the project. Well, we've transformed that to it's 10 times faster with our solution. So not only building 10 times faster, but bidding 10 times faster, because everything finds you instead of like, we just had one of our senior vice presidents of J. Dunn, a construction company in Kansas City, and he wrote the 10 reasons that you hire my smart plans. And I was like, well, that's perfect. Well, number 10 was because of Dominic and Shelly and our integrity. And when we shake hands, we mean handshake. And he's like, you don't find that in the industry. That was honorable for us to read that.
I read that testimony.
Yes, but he said every other system is like they've developed these Ferraris. And, they're general contractors. Oh, we got the Ferrari, we can do this, we can do that. Not with manipulated data, you can't do anything. No, you cannot. So Booz Allen Hamilton has hired us because, they're the strategic people behind the scenes trying to help the government be able to have this intelligence for the next building. And they said, we can't do our job because we don't have the data we need to do our job. So
where do they find the data? Do they pick up the phone and call a company like yours and say, we're in real trouble, and particularly during the COVID last 2 years, and say, I don't have data? Well, you're not a library. I mean, you can't just pull it out of the rabbit out of a hat. How do you find it? Or do you have staff that go look and research?
Well, no, so we're
Library of Congress.
I know, that's kind of what I feel like. I'm like, oh my gosh, my teachers in high school would have been like, library of what? No, that would not have been her. But no, so we're on per project, and we're actually the digital librarian for the project.
I see.
So yes, we can pull data. We can, like the other day, there was an airport in another part of the country, and they needed the charging station, the warranty for their charging station. They wrote it outside of the contract of art project. And so he called and he said, hey, do you have another airport project that has these? And I'm like, 2 seconds, not a problem. I'll call the owner of the airport first and make sure it's okay that I share this knowledge.
Sure.
And then I will send it to you. So he would have never had the warranty for this charging station because it wasn't designed for him to have the warranty. He didn't know he needed it until there was, like you said.
But charging is a new thing.
Yes,
it's a new innovation.
Yes.
What about repairing something that's pretty old, like an historic structure or something? And all of the conservationists of the town, and maybe to some extent the environmentalists, they don't want it ripped down. I like old things personally. I love all of that, the gingerbread on buildings. But how do you get history on something like that? You don't just go to another old building pro and say, hey, help me. How do you do that?
Well, so typically they'll have a room in the basement that is their library.
Archive.
Yes, their archive.
I see.
But no one knows what's in that room. It's just like this wrapped rolls of paper. And
architectural designs.
Yes. And it's just like,
construction plans.
We think it's down there. And so our company is able to also go down and say, yes, we have the plans for X or Y, and then we'll scan them and then we'll put them as a part of the current project so that the architect or whoever the design team is can actually have the old drawings with the new drawings so they can move quickly through the project. Without us, they hire consultants to go down into that basement to try to find it, millions of dollars, and then it's still another debacle. So we've been through all this stuff. And the thing is, we didn't start out to think this is what we were going to do. We didn't have a business plan that said Dominic and Shelly sit down with a bottle of wine after we were crying, like, what are we going to do? No, we said, you know what, let's investigate and find out what we can do different. In our very first project, we caught corruption. Very first project. And we thought
corruption of what kind? What variety?
Yes, data manipulation. So this was a hospital, and the general contractor was building his world headquarters that were all glass. And so on the back of this non-for-profit...
For the hospital, all glass?
No, this is the general contractor.
Oh, the headquarters.
Yes,
okay.
Yes. And so the hospital, what they did, they changed the warranty on the glass for the hospital to a 50-year warranty. Their bid was like 70 times higher. Bob Frazier called Dominic, because Dominic is of the industry, and said, hey, Dominic, have you heard there's a shortage of glaziers in Kansas City? Because that's what the general contractor told Bob Frazier. Dominic said, no, hey, just check the warranty. And in 2 seconds, Bob Frazier's like, we don't need a 50-year warranty. And that project finished 3 months early. I mean, it's that kind of stuff that's happening. It's amazing.
All right, let's take a break.
Yes.
I'm with Shelly Armato. She's the founder and CEO of My Smart Plans. We're talking about infrastructure in America and how things need to be repaired or maybe just completely overhauled. And her company works to reinvent the construction industry. She works with her husband. I'm Terry Gilberg. This is Timeline with Terry. I'll be right back.
CTA is a call to action to all conservatives to save America from left-wing radicals.
Nearly 45% of the US workforce already have plans for job hopping in 2021. Now, many of those 70 million job hoppers are just fed up and they're ready to work somewhere else, somewhere where they will be free. Maybe it's time for your talents to go to a city or a company that actually values your freedom. Post your resume on redballoon.work so that you can connect with this ever-growing list of free speech employers who would love to hire you.
All right, guys, you have signed up, right? You've joined freedomsquare.com. If you haven't, why not? This should have happened a decade ago. How did somebody not think of this earlier? If you're a business owner, we have a business directory to promote your business to patriots across the nation. So if you want to buy American, if you want to sell American, we have a business directory. Whatever it is, go now.
Join us in the fight for freedom. Welcome to Freedom Square.
We're back with Timeline with Terry. I'm Terry Gilberg. Today's Timeline topic, building back better with bridges and all the infrastructure in America, because so many things are broken, from the little stuff, potholes, or just pavers that need to be repaired on the street. Certainly that's true in Washington, D.C., in case you haven't noticed. Before the break, Shelly, you were talking about essentially corruption. And we all know where there's money, and big money, there's going to be somebody's hand in the cookie jar. There's going to be shredding of documents, perhaps, or fixing of the books, or payola, or don't look this way, sleight of hand, and so forth. Let's talk about a little bit of shredding of docs. Mm-hmm. Is that more of a modern phenomenon? Were documents kept in archives much more with historic projects from maybe 100 or 200 years ago, and then the shredding comes now? Because if you're going to go back and try to find documents, and you can't find documents, but then you go way back, and there's the roll, right? There's the construction documents. Mm-hmm. When did the shredding start happening, and why? Just cover up?
Yeah, we know that's exactly what it is. Like the Miami condo, our thing is, you know what? Somebody's running their shredder right now. I mean, because nobody wants accountability for what happened there. And so
that was a big one.
Yes,
tragic.
But with electronic data, because electronic data is now, a lot of the information is exchanged electronically. Data manipulation is easier because there wasn't a printed version of it. So the problem changed. It's still there. It's still the way. It's still what happens. We laugh whenever the announcement was made about the new infrastructure. General contractors hired more accountants and more lawyers. That's what they did, because they're going to count some more money, and they're going to write different contracts to get them out of the way of any kind of litigation. So it doesn't matter what their contract says. It doesn't matter how many bean counters they have. When the documents are organized, our country's protected. Like right now, the Corps of Engineers is a sitting duck for construction litigation. I was just at a huge conference in Orlando, and I met with a general contractor, and anyway, he said, well, I'm the person that sues the Corps of Engineers all the time. And I said, you know what? You're going to need to get a different job. And so he turned around and he gave me this, disparaging look. And I said, no, turn back around, look in my eyes, because you're going to remember meeting me down here, and you're going to say, I should have listened to her. Because, sir,
and your advice was?
My advice was, the train is coming for you, so you need to do it differently. If you're going to be a construction litigator, you better be smart about what's going on with the industry, because the deal of just huge discovery, because that's what we do, is we do all the discovery for the project. Those days are gone. I mean,
why? Because it's just too difficult to sue the government and
because we
win?
have all the data. Yeah, in 2
that
seconds.
much, huh? Are you number one in the industry?
I don't know. I'm going to say yes. We're the only one in the industry that does what we do. Every other system's set up to cheat. And so we're the only system in the industry that provides the digital librarian with the staff, provides all the data. It's bundled. And so here's the life cycle. Here's what happened, who, what, when, and where. And I've had people ask me, well, do you have a bodyguard? And I say, oh my God, no, I am a grandmother. Stop. I want to go to Target still.
Then don't go on national television.
Well, I can't help it. I'm like, but it's too important for my grandchildren's legacy that they're going to have all this money that's just blown. And I would rather see it spent on education or
And when you
Something.
talk about that, the biggest money is, of course, government money.
Yes.
So the biggest corruption, it stands to reason that the biggest corruption would be corruption in government.
Yes.
You would agree with that?
I can't 100% say that, because some of my government employees that I work with want so badly to do something different, but it's at the top. Like right now, a new GSA person was in charge, assistant to construction. His name's Andrew Young. I can't get him to call me back, and he's a former FBI person.
What is the nature of why he won't call you back, do
I
you
have
think?
no idea. I'm like, excuse me, I've called you 52 times. I'm going to continue calling you until I get a meeting with you and show you what I'm talking about. Because
What is he responsible for, though? Because he's
overall-
dodging, obviously.
Yes, over all the GSA construction. So GSA is like all the courthouses. I mean, they build a lot, and the FBI headquarters, the GSA. So the challenge that I want to solve is the GSA. Every project they build, my smart plans better be on it, or they're setting themselves up for a complete document disaster. But they're just like used to it. Oh, no big deal. They still get their pension. They still go home at night. But all the small businesses.
We know that about the FBI.
Yes. Well, all the small businesses, they suffer. So, I mean, this is not a plea to say, hey, Mr. GSA, I want you to look better. This is a plea for the small businesses that are out there that are trying to bid these projects, trying to have fair bid, not low bid, not manipulation, but like, let us do our jobs. And so I'm speaking on behalf
I
of
hear you.
the small businesses, not the huge general contractors that are out there, the Kiewits that, you know, I mean, I've been with all the general contractors. I can tell you the top 10, and a lot of them look at me like I am a moron woman, that they already have it figured out. And I'm like, I'm sorry, you don't. I already know all your secrets.
All right, with the government,
Yes.
I would imagine that project after project after project after project is
Yes.
always over budget.
Yes.
And so now throw money at it in this big Build Back Better. It's hard to say. Build Back Better, Biden's Build Back Better. And they're taking a victory lap on this. Isn't this wonderful? Just throw money at it. Over budget, always to ream the taxpayer, right?
Yeah. Well, I think the term over budget is loosely used because they have contingencies. So, like, there was a $400 million over budget hospital that was just built for the VA. And the Corps of Engineers still stood up with all their medals, and they were on LinkedIn. Oh, look, you know, here's our ribbon cutting. Well, only to find out I know the rest of the story, because I have all these people that call me all the time and are telling me, oh my gosh, Shelly, this is what really happened. And I'm like, okay, what do you mean? I mean, there's so many layers upon layers to get to the person that is responsible for doing it better. Mm-hmm. So anyway,
and then you never find that person,
never
so
find
it
that
never
person.
is done better,
It's never
right?
done better.
Because of the layers of bureaucracy.
Exactly.
And
the
pencil
people-
pushers, and
Yes,
my
like-
people will call
yes,
your people.
Yes,
And
MoDOT's building a new bridge in
yeah.
Kansas City.
Oh, yeah.
So the bridge
Oh.
thing's a big thing, right? So they're doing all this piering. They've redesigned it. I've built a lot of bridges in Kansas and Missouri. So I called about this particular bridge, and it was a woman, which I thought, come on, we need to stick together, girlfriend. And she's like, well, I only have a 1% contingency. 1% on a $300 million bridge project, you can afford me. Plus, I got about a 10 times return on investment. But she goes, well, I'm friends with the contractor. Excuse me, you need to get another job. I mean, this is not about a friendship here. This is about my grandchildren's legacy, that we are blowing money.
lives,
but
and
it's-
lives, and lives.
Because it's when one of those bridges
Indeed.
that, I mean,
Pulls of
it's
Pennsylvania.
not the first one.
Pulls of Pittsburgh.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
not the
Oh,
first
no.
bridge.
No.
And so it's like, you know, until their kids in there or their families in there, they're just like, well, you know, it's just going to. So we have a huge issue as a country I can solve.
All right. All right. You mentioned the VA.
Yes.
The VA.
Mm-hmm.
The VA had some black marks on its face, maybe, what was it now, 7, 8 years ago, maybe even 10 years ago
Denver.
now. And they've tried to build back better, shall I use that expression. There's many, many hospitals and outpatient clinics and things that need to be built. What do you say about the money? When you think in your mind, this is such a ton, just a ton of money. Do you prioritize in your mind, as a citizen, not necessarily an industry professional, but as a citizen, this needs to go to the VA, this needs to go to museums, this needs to go to the DOJ new building, this needs to go to the FBI, this needs to go to local FBI offices? Or do you do that in your mind? And where would the VA land? After all, we all love our vets. We didn't back in the 60s
Yeah,
so much.
They deserve, I know. my
But
son's
they
a
deserve.
veteran.
So,
Yes.
so should that be on the top 5 of priorities?
Well, I don't spend time thinking like that, honestly, because I would then jump off a bridge somewhere because I have no control over what they're going to do with the money. I only have one control.
That is, provided the bridge doesn't collapse.
Right. That's a whole nother story. I got one control over what I can personally do. So that's why I'm like, anytime I can speak about this, I mean, I'm not a professional TV personality. I probably could do my makeup differently. I'm sure a lot of things, but I'm willing to raise my hand and say, look, I've seen too much. I've seen, like, we have a really good friend that has a problem with alcoholism. His wife's going to divorce him. And so he's in the construction industry. And guess what he's been? On. I mean, he's at the vibration of like, I'm responsible for everything. Yet he has no control over what's going on because his company has decided to look the other way from my smart plans. And he's suffering. So money is not the key to everything. I believe that commerce is joy. I love to be happy. I love to laugh. But I know how our country is suffering. And it's not all about money. It's about the small businesses, the minority businesses that try to be on these projects. They don't have the right documents they need to bid. They're scapegoats. I mean, holy cow, I could go on a whole nother Netflix series about that. But that's what happens. They're the scapegoat. Well, they're minority contractors. I had one large company actually pat me on my shoulder, and I was the only woman in the room, patted me on the shoulder and said, honey, you can't handle all of our business. And so I was like, get your hand off my shoulder. Thank you. Actually, you know what? Did you know that your employee just tried to manipulate a contract for $12 million? Because I do. I know it. Because I got it right here. Any other questions? But I didn't say that because I was still trying to be appropriate, I guess. But like the boxing gloves are off. I'm here to
So
talk
for the
about it.
minority contractors,
Yes.
are you referring to a lot of heavy discrimination?
Oh God, yes. Yeah. Well, first of all, on a loan application, for me personally, I have to check if I'm married, Miss, or Miss.
Ms.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know. Today I might be nothing because he's going to kill me. But I take that off the application. Nobody needs to know what I am or if I'm married or not married, or it's just look at my credit score and my history. Okay, that's what we need to look at. But access to capital and the story goes on and on. I can't change everything. But what I can change the way that these projects are delivered, and I can change the life cycle for the next 50 years, that they can know for the next 50 years what happened to that bridge. That's what I can do.
And
right
probably in turn save hundreds of lives, depending upon how the bridge is built or how that road is built.
Well, and plus it's 10 times faster. So our history shows our projects are finishing 10 times faster. So that means more money for everybody. I mean, here's what happened, who, what, when, and where. Plus, I'm thinking right now, and not to disparage China, but at one point there was a lot of concrete in the country from China.
Oh, still is.
Okay, I don't know all this stuff, but I'm saying we need to know who the manufacturer was of the concrete. So my company would have all that data of who, what, when, and where it was created, it was cultivated. I mean,
That is, if it's here in the United States.
we would know that.
I did a show recently just about, in fact, it was just the other day, about getting manufacturing back here.
Yes.
And when you get it back here, you see who owns what and the supply chain and where it's coming from and better with history, etc. Now, in areas where Shelly, you can't get history, do you tell your client or whomever it might be that's asking for the history, I can only bring you up to speed on 65% of this history. Everything else you're kind of on your own because it doesn't exist, it's been shredded, the lawyers have it under wrap, lock and key, a judge says you can't see it. I don't know, there was payola, who knows? Maybe somebody died with it, who knows? How do you handle that when they want the full transparency?
Well, from the day of planning and design going forward, I can provide all of that. But
Sure,
the history, I mean...
But you can't unring the bell.
You can't unring the bell. And you know what, the biggest challenge, no, this is the second biggest challenge our country has. A lot of the people that have managed these facilities are retiring. The guy that's got the keys on the belt. So there goes all the knowledge.
That wisdom.
Yes. And that
I see that.
So we solve
That's
that
invaluable.
too.
That's
Exactly.
invaluable.
Yeah.
How do you solve that?
Well, because no, this is not true. To some capacity. Going forward, I solve that. But going backwards, what we can do is we can get the data and make it smart before they leave. So we can sit down with them and help them draw out what it is that they've done, whether it's
And what they know.
What they know. Because they don't know what they don't know. Because they
And a lot of
just
times they don't know what they know unless you ask the right questions
Exactly.
and pull it out of them.
Exactly.
How successful are you on that?
I would give us I would say a 7 out of 10.
Really?
Not a lot of them
And they
are-
want to talk to you?
Exactly.
They do?
Well, a lot of them want to do better. So yes, we can have those conversations, but the ones that don't, I can only do so much. But whenever the director of the airport, because we build a lot of airports, the FAA considers us as an allowable expense because the FAA also needs this data. Like at Denver, there was a $1 billion project, and the lady that was in charge, her name's Kim Day. So I went to Denver, 15 times to try to get a meeting. And she actually retired early is the story. The city had to settle with the partnership that built the project. And if you ask them in Denver, what happened to the Great Hall? They'll say, oh, it was a concrete issue. There was a concrete. Show me. I'm from Missouri. Show me the document that says it was a concrete issue. Because that's just what happens. You just have to kind of take what they say. Because I know the system they used was just another document disaster. So it burns in my belly. You know what I'm saying?
How long have you been at this game?
15 years.
Uh-huh. And you've got a great reputation from what I can tell from
We
the
have
web
a
and talking to you in the
fabulous-
pre-interview and so forth. But I'm sure with some of them, you don't have a good reputation because they don't like you. I'm sure some people don't like you. Yes or no?
Well, I'd like to be able to have a Netflix series about that.
What do you mean?
Well, some of the words I've been called I never even heard before. And I want...
Well, that's probably from the people, first of all, that have foul mouths, but also that are covering something up.
Exactly.
They don't want you around.
Exactly. And I'm just like, could you get more creative with your language? And does your mama know you talk like that? And does your wife know? Because holy cow.
Here's the soap, here's the
I
toothbrush.
think you're a deacon in your church, and I don't think that Jesus would be okay with you using those kind of words. But that's all they can do with me is to try to give me a word that is going to convince me that I shouldn't pursue what I started. And my daddy showed me at a very young age. He was the master at telling me what I couldn't do. So I was trained up young
All right.
to not listen to what that is.
Okay.
So, yes.
I'm with Shelly Armato. We'll take another quick break here and come back. I want to talk about things like internet services and cables because everybody wants, the fastest cable too. And that's construction too. Yes. I'm Terry Gilbert. This is Timeline with Terry. I'll be right back.
CTA is a call to action to all conservatives to save America from left-wing radicals.
Nearly 45% of the U.S. workforce already have plans for job hopping in 2021. Now, many of those 70 million job hoppers are just fed up, and they're ready to work somewhere else. Somewhere where they will be free. Maybe it's time for your talents to go to a city or a company that actually values your freedom. Post your resume on redballoon.work so that you can connect with this ever-growing list of free speech employers who would love to hire you.
All right, guys, you have signed up, right? You've joined freedomsquare.com. If you haven't, why not? This should have happened a decade ago. How did somebody not think of this earlier? If you're a business owner, we have a business directory to promote your business to patriots across the nation. So if you want to buy American, if you want to sell American, we have a business directory. Whatever it is, go now.
Join us in the fight for freedom. Welcome to Freedom Square.
We're back on Timeline with Terry. I'm Terry Gilbert. This is the show where I bring in for a full debrief, as much as we can go, about an hour, expert guests to go deep and broad on the hot and vexing issues of our day. Transportation in America certainly is one of them. And our hearts and our minds go out to the people in Florida, in Pennsylvania and Pittsburgh with that bridge breaking. And you just kind of have to wonder, where's next? What's next? Talk to me a little bit, because we didn't cover it yet, about subcontractors. And I say that just as a citizen. I don't know your field very well and that kind of thing, other than picking out paint swatches is really not my bag. It kind of makes me nervous because I don't know what I'm doing. But what also makes me nervous is when I hire Mr. Smith and they come to my house and they're going to maybe do the roof or something, and there's 10 Jim and Bill and Sam and Ben, and who are you? I didn't hire you. The subcontractors have always bothered me. And they don't know me, they're just there. Talk to me about that on these big government projects.
Yeah, well, the big crisis right now is there is a shortage of subcontractors, a shortage of trade
Because of COVID, right? The COVID issue?
Actually, I think it's because the general contractors have personally put them out of business because they were low bid on a project, and like my husband's company of 45 years, they didn't make him whole. They basically were like, we're taking the money and laughing. So I think the general contractor has a huge responsibility going forward to provide a platform that they can have a fair bid. They can have the same documents that everyone else has. But the problem we're suffering with right now is, and I don't know how to say this politically, so I'm not going to say it totally, but there's a lot of workers in our country that don't speak English. And so what they'll do is
that's well known and documented.
Well, I'm trying to be polite. I'm trying to be
I understand.
polite.
I understand.
Because I don't know if it's a good thing or bad thing, because I mean, we got to get the work done. But anyway, so what'll happen is a general contractor will bring them on and under another contract, and they'll put in 500 toilets over the weekend. Okay, just as
the worker bees.
The worker bees. They go in 500 toilets. Well, the problem with those 500 toilets is the owner does not have record of who put in those toilets.
So they don't know if it's Bill or Sam or Jim or
Juan.
Know.
Right. Without our solution, they have no idea who was supposed to be or who was doing that. So because we're tracking all that data. But anyway, so the challenge is where's the warranty for those toilets? Is toilet the right appropriate word? Commode?
Toilet is fine.
Okay, I'm trying to be very
I think commode is French.
Okay, French. A very French thing. It's commode.
All right,
anyway,
so, but you can trace it back. You can know.
Yes, exactly. And so this is what I'm talking about whenever the subcontractors, they want to do their jobs. They want to do good, but they've been asked for so long to do so many trickery dickory dock, like Houdini lives in this industry. And so we're saying, let's get rid of Houdini. Let's provide a platform that we can have fair play, accountability, and transparency that's going to make everyone win. Because our solution doesn't say, well, now you're going to suffer. No, our solution says, Mr. Contractor, you're going to make about 18% to your bottom line unless there is litigation. And then if there is litigation, we're priceless. There is no litigation when you know what happened, right? There is no,
because of the transparency element.
Exactly.
All right.
So my hearts go out to the subcontractors, and there are a lot of great people in our country. There's a lot of people that want to do it good. The gatekeepers got to move. Got to move out of the way. Sorry, we're going to go around you. That's kind of my philosophy. Either Mr. Andrew Young at the GSA is going to get out of my way, or I'm going to go right around him to somebody that's going to care. And I don't know who that person is, but I'll find him, because I didn't get where I am by not finding people.
You're not a wallflower. I see that,
No,
which is great. And I love the yellow.
Yes.
And I love, let me move on in an interest of time.
Okay.
Let's talk about, everybody wants faster internet. Everybody wants internet. And so there are construction projects having to do with faster cable, or at least cable to some of the rural areas. Do you deal with that? And talk to me a little bit about, is there more corruption in that? Because that's very hot. Everybody wants the internet and so forth. 5G and all of this, or not?
I can't speak to the corruption part of that. I just know that they're tearing up a lot of roads, and the roads aren't getting back repaired the way they should, and there's no way for the city, the state, the government to come back until there's a huge issue. And so, again, building with that data will help us make sure that the road that didn't just get replaced is now torn up, and now we have internet. But our road has a huge hole in it.
Sure.
So again, it's that chronic problem and chronicle.
Yeah.
Thank you for all those words. Anyway, so it all goes together.
And with that, what is your take on, I know it's not exactly in your field, but it's along the same lines. Our grid in the United States is extraordinarily vulnerable. Extraordinarily vulnerable. And, just a year ago, the poor folks in Texas, they were about, from what I've read, and I've talked to authorities on this, they were about 4 to 5 minutes away from a complete blackout in freezing weather as well. But they kind of, the windmills froze and natural gas, everything didn't work properly. And one was relying on the next. We got a little power here, we got a little power there, but pipes froze. It was a mess. And I would say that the grid on the East Coast is not very good. We are vulnerable to cyber attacks, West Coast as well, but Texas was a real problem. There's 3 areas. Does the grid issue come into play a lot with construction projects that you're on?
Absolutely. I mean, it's
and
all
it's not
in the same
really
bucket.
your element, though.
We could, building the nuclear facilities or building the power facilities, that is so important to have the data, because the deconstruction process of those projects are, from day one, they have to start deconstructing. It all matters. Anything that they're using for a hammer or a drill, it matters that we track all that data. So, it's a problem. It is a huge problem. But I have faith in our country. I just wrote an article about myself, and I'm probably the only CEO in the world that I give people my cell phone number. And because I kind of feel like I save people's lives, I'll get a phone call. I don't even know. I could go through the whole thing, and I'm like, look, you know what? Just stop for a second. God did not fall off the throne. We're fine. You're going to be fine, and we'll figure this out. Because, like last night, we're building Port Arthur in Texas, and at 10 o'clock at night, we had a hit on our website that someone needed to upload something, and they needed it to be like right now. Well, our policy is one ring to everything. So whether we're chatting or whether we're answering the phone, it's one ring. And
Are you a 24/7?
Yes, 24/7.
Oh, wow.
And sometimes I'm the 24. If it's 2 o'clock in the
And
morning.
your husband's the 7.
He is. Oh my God, he is. Yeah. Thank God for him and his yin to my yang. But everything matters. And time of the essence is what's important with our country. And if we can protect those $1 trillion and really get the bang for the buck of the money we're spending, let's do it.
Does my smart plans eliminate a lot of corruption, would you say? Prevent corruption?
100.
Can you point right to it and say, that would have happened, but that
100%.
we have this website and we have this team and I'm the CEO of it?
Yes, nothing gets past us on our dime. Yeah, our time. We just finished our first Corps of Engineers project. It took 7 years for the Corps of Engineers to surrender, because this is the posture, I say the tall white man syndrome. I come in the room and they're like, oh my God, and so they're just like, so 7 years. So finally did a project. It had no modifications, but on the project twice, the contractor tried to change and open closed documents that we are the gatekeeper for. And so we're not saying you can't open the closed documents. We go back to the Corps and say, hey, do you want us to open these closed documents? And they're like, well, we had no idea. Yeah. So now they're looking at us going, our systems don't work. I've been telling you that for 7 years, but it's the posture. So anyway, the arms
And
are
it's
folded
condescension.
down. Yes.
I get that.
And
but it's changing.
It's changing. Yeah. Yeah. So that's our story.
Okay, back to the news,
Yes.
all right? Do you expect, because I'm a news junkie, as you know, do you expect, and where do you expect the next disaster to be?
Oh, please, I can't think like that. I fly. I have to take CBD oil.
I mean with bridges, with roads.
I don't,
Not the airline industry.
No,
That's
no,
a
no,
whole
no.
other bottle of wine
my Lord,
conversation.
no, thank you. I just.
Can you smell it out? Can you get ahead of it if you do?
I can't. No, I can't get ahead of it. I got to just keep on clawing my way through and sitting across from someone that cares, that says, I'm going to do something about this, which we have our champions in the world right now that are just like.
But Shelly, as you look out in the landscape of America,
yeah.
or even in your more local community and say, that is a problem. Come on, that's a problem.
It's the bridges.
Can you smell? It's always the bridges,
It's
huh?
always, and of course now because of what I do, every time I go by a bridge, I'm like, look at the erosion that the salt has caused on that concrete. Because now, not if the bridge falls, but if a piece of concrete falls off that bridge and I'm driving to Target with my grandbabies and it hits my car, guess what's going to happen?
Oh, yeah.
Bad story. So it's a chronic problem that we have to solve, and I believe it is something that we can solve, but you know, even in my own state, MoDOT, I mean, KDOT. I mean, you should have seen when I presented to KDOT. It was the whole, you know, we got this handled. And I'm like, okay, could you show me your system? Open your, well, we don't know our password. Of course you don't.
I don't know the password.
I'm just
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Before I run out of time.
Yeah.
You're here in Washington, D.C.
Yes.
If you could stay maybe a week in Washington, D.C., and I know you can't, but I know you come back, who do you want to talk to first?
Well,
Pete Buttigieg? Who?
Yes.
I know yes,
I mean,
yes, but who
tweeted
else?
him. I got in trouble on Instagram for tweeting him.
President Biden?
Yes,
Jen Psaki?
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
who are your top 10 to shake them up?
Well, Pete Buttigieg for sure, and I don't know that I'm saying his name right, so I apologize for that. But I tweeted him, I've texted him, I've called. I had what are the people called that you pay to go get favor to go meet him?
The pages or the interns or the staff? Or?
It's the lawyers that are
lobbyists.
Lobbyists, 25,000 for a meeting with Pete, and I'm like, you know, I wasn't raised that way. I'm not that.
A lobbyist asking your company $25,000 to meet
yes,
with
yes,
Pete.
yes. And it was a monthly thing because I mean it's a huge payoff if I do what I say I'm going to do. But I'm like, no. I'll run into Pete at the grocery store, or I'll run into Pete. You know, so definitely Pete. President Biden, I think that he would care. I think that he would say, hey, is there something we can do better?
Well, he just did $1.7 trillion.
Yeah.
He's on to the next.
He's on to the next. I mean, I want to testify in front of Congress. I want to show them what I have. I want to show them the corruption that I've stopped. I mean, the GSA, I saved him on just one project, $12 million. One project. It was $1 billion project, but $12 million is
That's a lot.
It's still
$12 million
for the kids that need free lunches, or I mean, to buy down gas prices. I don't know. I'm not that person, but I want to show them what I've done to say we can do this. This is a chronic problem. The city of Chicago, Mayor Lightfoot, I think she would care if I could get a meeting with Mayor Lightfoot. But there's one of me. We have no sales staff. We have bootstrapped our company for 15 years. It's unheard of. But the only reason we can do that is because we figured it out.
Well, it seems to me that when you get in front of the government officials that you really want to talk to for a variety of reasons, it seems to me that what you need to convey is get out of this mindset of being reactive and get into a mindset of being proactive for the future. Individual businesses do that. They innovate, individual companies. The government always seems to be on the backside, reactive. Wait for a disaster to happen. Look at 9/11, for crying out loud.
Yes, I know. That's why I fly.
Not to bring you down, but...
Well, I fly with CBD oil. I mean, because I'm like...
You said that.
Somebody gets on the plane, there's a problem. I'm going to be on the evening news. And
but how do you change that mindset in the few minutes that we have left?
On what capacity?
What's your MO to change it?
Well, I mean, it's just the whole idea of building with intelligence so that we can have a life cycle. Because the buildings themselves are an asset, but the most important asset is the living document that was used to build that. So that's what I can do right now. It's done. I mean, check the box. But I might be Pollyanna. I mean, people tell me I'm Pollyanna, but I really have made it happen with Pollyanna World. I live in a world where I believe everything is possible, and it's probable because I believe there's no, it's never crowded along the extra mile.
Well, it's difficult to tell the government to do it right the first time. And do it right is documents, no corruption, don't overspend, have the appropriate people, etc.
Yes.
Because it's such a bureaucracy, and there's so many moving parts, and the lobbyists this, and the staffers that, and etc., etc.
Yes,
it's a hard thing to do, but I commend you for trying.
Well, I'm not the try girl.
Well, yeah, you will be though,
Exactly.
because the more you spend time in Washington D.C., you will be.
It's the
you'll
trier.
keep banging.
I'm just like
you'll
the try
keep
is a loser.
banging on the door.
Yeah, I'm like Tom Brady. I'm like, I don't know. I just keep getting better. I was 199th pick, but you know what? I just keep on moving. Yeah.
You're a delight to talk to, and you're so informative.
Thank you.
And I wish you all the best in your company, and hold their feet to the fire.
I'm on it.
Thank you, Shelly. Shelly Armato is my special guest. Was my special guest. Hope you come back. All right.
Back. Yeah.
This is another edition of Timeline with Terry. I'm Terry Gilbert. We'll see you in another edition where we peel back the onion of a deep and broad issue and find the sweet spot of the story with expert guests. See you next time.